Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with the first episode in quite some time from the Cowardly Hames & Co. Hope you're all doing well, and here we are with the Tier 3 German battleship, the Nassau. It's got 280mm main guns with 6 forward-facing secondaries of the 88mm variety with 4 facing to the rear, and then the side secondaries are a mixture of 120 and 150mm. Now, these ships were initially constructed between 1907 and 1910, and they went on to constitute the 2nd Division of the 1st Squadron of the High Seas Fleet. These ships were called the Nassau, the Rhineland, the Posen, and the Westfalen. With construction, of course, proceeding apace, they were a response to the British ships such as the Dreadnought, although they were a little slower due to their choice of power plant, i.e. steam boilers versus turbine engines. The reason for this being that turbines weren't considered quite reliable enough for the German High Command. Prior to the construction of these ships, there was actually a bit of an argy-bargy in the naval office between those that wanted Dreadnought-style ships to counter the British ships, or those that wanted something a bit cheaper. Of course, the problem being, for Tripitz, who was the proponent of these battleships, that the proposal had to be voted on. Of course, the proposal for the armoured cruisers was naturally passed. However, Tripitz did then use these funds to construct battle cruisers instead, although then labelled them as armoured cruisers. Those are some awfully big armoured cruisers. The Nassau class weren't the smoothest sailors, with problematic rolling and rather stiff handling. Now, this rolling was due to the weight and positioning of those 4 wing turrets. Originally, their centre of gravity should have made them a nice and stable firing platform, but someone did forget to check what the average swell period of the North Sea was as compared to the ship's roll period, which, of course, Murphy's Law, they matched up quite nicely. To compensate for this, bilge keels were added. Ignoring the rolling problem, however, they actually didn't handle half badly and had a very small turning radius with minor speed losses in heavy seas. The bilge keels sadly did cause some speed loss when at hard rudder, but oh well, can't have everything. Now on to the fights. Sadly, their first brawl wasn't all that conclusive at the Battle of the Gulf of Riga. First day, they weren't able to seize the Gulf, although in the second day, with the battleships acting in a support capacity, they were able to seize the Gulf, but were then later forced to retire due to the threat of Allied submarines. Now, their moment to shine was at the Battle of Jutland. However, this didn't last long. At about midnight on the 1st of June, the Nassau quite literally stumbled upon the British destroyer the Spitfire, reenacting the iceberg in Titanic. And in fine tradition, of course, the battleship attempted a ram kill. The Spitfire attempted to evade but was unable to escape, leaving a 3.5-metre gash in the side of the Nassau above the waterline, causing a reduction in speed to about 15 knots. Although the destroyer was below the gun depression range of the Nassau's guns, the blast alone from when they fired them off was sufficient to destroy the Spitfire's bridge. The Posen wasn't really off to a much better start, to be honest, with an accidental ram kill of the Allied cruiser Elbe, which was then scuttled to prevent capture by the Allied forces. Not long after 1 a.m, the Nassau and the Thüringen made contact. The Nassau and Thüringen encountered the British armoured cruiser the Black Prince, with the Thüringen opening fire first and landing a total of 27 heavy caliber shell hits and 24 hits from a secondary battery. The Ostfriesland also aided in the engagement along with the Friedrich der Große. Now, of course, sinking the Black Prince was naturally directly in the path of the Nassau. To avoid it, emergency manoeuvres were undertaken to avoid a collision with the battleship Kaiserin, German word for empress actually. Following a return to German waters, the Nassau, Posen and Westfalen, along with the Helgoland-class battleships Helgoland and Turgen, took up defensive positions in the Jed roadstead for the night. little damage was sustained to the 4 Nassau-class ships, with not one being hit by a single heavy caliber shell, although they did sustain some hits from light caliber secondary guns. Sadly, the inglorious tale then continues when the Westphalen was torpedoed by the British submarine HMS E-23 1916, but it only suffered minimal damage. In 1918, Westphalen and Rhineland were sent to aid the Finns in their civil war, with the Rhineland running aground off the Åland Islands, and the ship not being refloated till the 9th of July. Rhineland was then eventually converted to a barrack ship in Kiel. In June 1919, after the war, the 3 ships were sent to the various Allied powers, with the Rhineland immediately being sold for scrap. The other ships eventually followed between the years 1920 and 1924. Now, here we are in the closing moments of this battle, and scoring a citadel hit is quite a nice way to mosey on into the final few minutes of this video. Now, this ship, with its arrangement of secondary guns, is actually surprisingly effective in a head-on engagement, because you have the 3 main battery guns that can still fire, as well as the 6 secondary guns. And remember, even destroyers trying to sneak up on your rear will at the very least have the 4 88mm guns to contend with, and I have actually sunk multiple destroyers and cruisers using them, just because this ship is quite literally bristling with epoxy things. Now, this is of course the first battle that I had in random battles with this ship, and as far as your upgrade path goes, I would go hull upgrade first, for of course the health armor and any secondaries it gives you, as well as your initial AA component of a couple of 88mm guns. Okay, you're not going to be shooting down squadrons of enemy fighters, but let's be honest here, at this tier, it'll do. Then I would recommend going for the engine upgrade, followed by the firing solution, because this ship is actually detectable at 10.4 kilometers, but has a range of 10.1 kilometers for its main battery guns. Interesting historical tidbit actually, apparently the secondary guns had a range of up to 14 kilometers in reality, which, you know, would be nice to have in the game, but sadly I don't think that's going to be the case. Actually, a quick bit of trivia on the main battery as well. The 280 odd or 11-inch guns were chosen because in the North Sea it was thought that all the fog and what have you in the weather would mean that long-range engagements wouldn't actually take place all that often. Hence, a faster firing, smaller caliber gun was preferred. After all, what's the point in having the range advantage over the enemy if you can't even see them, nor they you? Now, because of this faster firing range, it actually only takes you about 20 seconds to reload a shot. And with that cruiser having run aground on that island, to quote Jingles, that's a paddling. And I actually do quite like the changes that they've done to the sinking animations of the ships. Now, how many of you think I can score a citadel hit on this cruiser, considering he is absolutely stationary, and I'm soon going to be loading up AP? And look, there's an enemy battleship, so now it's a 2-on-1 engagement, just what the Nassau loves. Or in other words, charge. I'm really hoping that Savo scores a citadel hit, because otherwise it's now a 3-in-1 engagement. Cruiser, battleship, and a destroyer. Yay! Aren't I lucky? Now I'm going to try and swing myself around to the left, just to try and make distance between myself and the destroyer, because, well, the Nassau is good at dealing with destroyers, but I don't want to push my luck, especially considering my win-loss ratio in this ship. Scoring some very nice hits on that stationary cruiser. I'm really wondering why he isn't reversing, or at least trying to get out of there. Of course, the more astute of you will notice that I am getting rather close to that enemy battleship, who is another Nassau class. And this cruiser's shells will eventually score a hit. One day. Come on. Up there we go. Compensating for accuracy with fire rate. Sure way to... Really? Destroyer, if you could just stay off for a while, sod off for a little, I've got bigger fish to fry. Now with myself on fire, I'm firing off more citadel aiming hits to try and frantically sink that belly cruiser. Because, of course, anything I can do to reduce the amount of guns facing at me is a good idea. Now this angle here is actually sort of the best angle you can engage someone at in the Nassau, unless of course you're chasing them down directly, because you've got all 8 of your main guns able to fire on them, yet you're giving them the least amount of ship silhouette to hit. Unlike what I'm doing here, where I'm effectively full broadside on. I hope you'll all forgive me, I got a little excited, and I was tempted to go after the destroyer, but the rush of shit to the brain quickly ended and I focused on the battleship once more. Aside from that cruise, I'm not exactly having much luck with citadel hits, so I'm lining myself up for a head-on charge at this battleship. Not aiming for a round kill, but just trying to frantically reduce the amount of space that this guy can shoot at. Now you'll all of course note how close that destroyer is getting to that sweet, sweet booty of mine. And of course this is where I start to panic. Under heavy fire from 3 ships, was on fire in multiple spots, secondaries save the day. Now I'm currently trying to focus down on this battleship because I'm not really paying attention to the cruiser, and indeed secondaries nailed him. And well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Naughty Nassau, and goodbye from Cowardly Hames & Co. We'll see you around.